This is an Oxion's model of the Crooked House pub, which I thought would make an interesting addition to the layout. The company does not ship abroad, so I bought the model when I was last in England and built it whilst I was there and brought it carefully wrapped back in my luggage. It's quite a nice kit, and the only extra I made to the building was the addition of glazing in the windows plus curtains, so that you didn't look straight inside an empty building. The next step was to build a baseboard to mount the project on. I also built the retaining walls, which were made from balsa wood covered in Slater's 4mm brick. The boundary walls were then given a coat of watered down black paint to weather them. I prefer to build my narrow gauge layout in sections like this and modules, as it sits at quite a high level. It's above my 00 gauge and it's probably a height of around 4'6", so it's much easier to work down on the workbench. I then marked out the position of the buildings on the board, as I didn't want them to be stuck down at this stage. Once I was sure where they were going to fit, this left me free to start adding the ground effects. To secure these, I use a PVA mix watered down 50-50. The first coat to go on was a light gravel stone effect. The second building in the picture is a resin kit of a derelict garage. This comes from the MS range of models. I included this in the little module in order to fill out the space so it didn't look so empty and add extra points of interest. Once this had dried, a second coat was added around the edges, which was Woodland Scenics blended turf. I carried on like this until I had gradually filled the whole of the baseboard. At one end I added a children's playground using a bush kit. These are HO figures, but near enough in size that they can be used with 00. The playground was marked out showing where the equipment was going to go, and then the area around it was grassed, and the base for each equipment was painted using a concrete paint. Once the concrete bases were dry, I then started to glue in place the various items of playground equipment, plus a climbing frame from the Metcalf Models range. The next stage was to add the outside seating in front of the pub, and then just for a little bit of effect I put in some tree stumps which came from the Green Scene company. And finally a little bit of border edging was placed along the edge of the play area just to protect any punters enjoying a quiet drink from any objects flying out of the play area. So finally, with the model completed for the time being, we take a quick look round, starting with the canal lock and towpath that sits behind the Crooked House pub. As we pan along, we can see the completed play area and also the fact that I've now moved the outdoor seating area closer to the children's play area in order to make parking spaces in front of the pub. The model is not finished yet, as obviously it still needs things like people and children and other ancillary equipment around the pub, and once I've completed further sections it will all to be blended in with vegetation and trees so that it all looks part of a complete scene.